Hello and welcome to Loving Me, Myself, and Life with me, Jody Misiak. And today, actually, this episode lands literally on my husband and I's 7th wedding anniversary. So today I thought I'd talk about love. Now, I'm not talking about the fairy tale, we lived happily ever after love. I could share how we met at a ballroom dancing class. And I could share all these fun things about our wedding and things. But those are just the start, the fresh things, the things that haven't been pushed to eruption like a volcano, the stress of daily life and all this stuff. So today I want to talk about, what happens after the fairy tale story is and they lived happily ever after. It's not about woe is me or, complaining about anything, but it's just being mindful that you can't just fall in love with somebody and then just be okay, we're good. We love each other and just stop there without learning, growing. Because the fun thing is we're constantly changing, learning and growing, especially if you have, if you're on your self-love journey as well. So you're constantly discovering new things about yourself, and which means you're partner also gets to discover that as well. So let's talk about that, right? So, and when I talk about love, it doesn't necessarily have to be in a romantic relationship. We can talk about this on a level of friendship, family members, anything and everything in between here. So it can be a marriage. It could be, just friendship. Well, I shouldn't say just friendship, because friendship is really important too. Friendship, family. And so any relationship you have with anybody, including yourself, this all relates to right here. It is so easy to get swept up in the, we met this way and the lovey and the romantic stuff. And if you don't actually, I don't want to say do the work, but you need to actually put focus on relationships, regardless of whatever relationship this is, friend, family, yourself, a partner. If you don't actually make that a priority in your life, those things tend to just go away. Now, I definitely have some friendships where, we might not see each other for a long time, and then it's time has never passed. And that's really amazing. Those are amazing relationships. But the ones that you're actually living with nonstop and seeing each other very often, say a partner, they definitely, things can get on your nerves. So I bring this up not just because it is our wedding anniversary today. And yes, we've only been married 7 years, but we've actually known each other for 11 and a half now, which is pretty cool. It's still not as long as some people's relationships, obviously, but this is my take on things. The reason I'm bringing it up, though, is because of all this craziness that the world's experiencing right now with not being able to do the socializing that we're normally you could go to a restaurant, or you could have, somebody come in and babysit. Our kids have been out of school for so long, and they're not going back this school year. So my husband and I have gone through some major growing pains. And actually just the other night, I turned to him, I go wow, because somebody once told me that, the year 7 is really hard on relationships. And I try not to hold too much stock in that. He goes, but we did have a rough, we had things going on this past year. We had some trials, We went through some major growing pains, just like everybody else out there right now is going through growing pains in any relationship, right? Maybe you haven't seen family in a very long time. I know people that can't visit their family right now because they're in a different country. And it's just this craziness. So in one of the episodes just recently, I said, love is stronger than fear. And the cool thing is love is stronger than anything. However, we still need to focus on the love. So, and we can get so lost in the everyday hustle bustle, the daily stresses, trying to figure out how to homeschool, do our own work on top of everything else. And it can get very overwhelming. And usually the things that go first are, the relationships with ourselves and or our partners. So it's just being mindful of the relationships you really want to have grow and keep thriving. Those are really what you need to focus on. Now, I'm not talking about like every single day you need to be like, I need to do this and have this like crazy, go-to energy, but just being mindful. And I know for me, it was for a while there, my husband and I just didn't feel like we were on the same page, like at all. And I go like, look, we need to have a talk, like about, figuring out how to reconnect. It can be so hard to reconnect when your kids are running around nonstop. And then the only time you have to talk is when they go to bed. And all you want to do is go to bed. It's just making those small little pockets of time and to appreciate each other. And like for us, our anniversary plans, we canceled them. We were supposed to go away, or we were supposed to be kid-free, and that didn't happen this year. However, that doesn't mean that we're going to mope about. We are still having, it's actually what we did when our son was a newborn, and we're going to have a romantic dinner out on the patio. And that is just what we're going to do. Like, sometimes you got to shift your perspective, change plans up a little bit. And that doesn't mean that it's not important. It just means that we just got to shift. Like, it's still super important. We just need to shift our plans a little bit and just make ourselves a priority again in each other's like worlds. And also in that, one of the things I also realized throughout all this craziness is I myself, like here I am having a podcast called like Loving Me, Myself, and Life. And I lost sight of myself there for a while because I was in constant mother mode, mothering my children and making sure, things were running, that my daughter was being homeschooled, all that fun stuff. And in those moments, I need like, wait a second, I need to make time for me. So even before I reconnected to my husband, I had to reconnect to myself. My husband and I, things were just not feeling right. But until I took that moment to really be like, what's going on with me first? And now that might sound like selfish, but it's not. It really isn't. If we try to fix something outside of ourselves first, or change, not even fix, change something outside of ourselves first, without understanding why, it's going to be hard. But when you go inward first, figure out like, what is going on? What am I feeling? What is this like, what's causing all these like frustrations to come out and lash out at my husband for? That is when I got to get clear. And then I got to sit down with my husband and like, look, we just haven't been on the same page. And like, that way you can come from a place of love. There's a saying where hurt people hurt. And if we lose that relationship with ourselves, we can feel hurt because we don't feel like we're good enough, or we don't feel like that we're not important enough to have that time. And we can feel just not lovable anymore. And when we don't feel lovable, then we can lash out at others around us. So when you go inward first, to have a little conversation with your heart, yourself, that's when things can really shift. And it's so important to have those conversations with yourself before you jump at anybody else's relationship with yourself, or with like, just, come from that place of love. Now, this isn't just, hey, have a conversation and everything hunky-dory all the time. It does take time and work, a little bit of work. It just takes more time. And it's not even so much work as in priority. It could just be as simple as finding 5 to 10 minutes in your day to meditate, so as you slow down, listen to your intuition, your heart, to who you are, you open up the space to let that in, to let love in, to feel it. And then also what I found very helpful recently is getting back to my journal. And I've said this many times before. A journal can be your best friend. Like, maybe you don't feel like you can talk to your friends. Maybe they're further away and you really like to have a in-face conversation. Maybe you're like my daughter and don't like video chatting. Our kids absolutely do not like video chatting. And I know you can miss that, like lose that personal touch as well sometimes. So if you're not like that, but you just feel like you need to get stuff out, a journal is a really good thing. Like with the COVID going around right now, like that's just one little thing my husband and I, we have a lot of personal stuff going on, like a move, and we're saying goodbye to a cottage that was a family cottage since my dad was born. There's been a lot of change going on in our life. So not just the fact that the kids have been like home 24/7, but we're also going through all this change. Maybe you are too. And that's why it's so important to have a relationship with yourself and to get really clear on like what's showing up. Like what are you feeling? And just getting really clear so you don't lash out on others around you, because that's what can happen. And you might not even do it on purpose. It might just happen. So if you are feeling distant from a partner, a family member, a friend, look at how much time you're just spending with yourself first and be honest. Like, do you need to make a little bit more room for yourself so that you can really get clear on who you are, how you've been showing up, so you can reconnect with the ones that you feel like maybe have been pushing you away or maybe just kind of slipped away. And now there are, not that I want to go down this road too long, but there are relationships in our lives that come in and then go, like they just are there to teach us something and then they go again. But I'm talking about the ones that you really want to have, like a spouse or your children, a family member. And I do encourage, though, to go inward first. And this doesn't have to be like a week, a month, a year-long thing. I'm just saying before you have a conversation with somebody, it's really, really helpful to just quiet the mind and the body and just go inward for just a short period of time. And that way you can have a loving relationship, or not even just a loving relationship, a loving conversation. And again, like this can be challenging at this time. I know, because I'm there. I'm recording this podcast while my husband takes the kids out for a walk. I've been trying to record this podcast for a couple weeks now, and just life has happened. We sold our house. It's been a little crazy adventure, and life doesn't always go as we have planned. We thought it would go, or as we planned. And it's just about knowing who you are, allowing life to flow. Because when you're going against the current, like means something's going on. And the best place to start is with yourself. So regardless if you've been married like decades, or, I love to actually hear stories about people married for decades and how they've been handling having to be isolated with each other for so long. Because we're all experiencing the same thing, but differently. We all are having to stay in our houses more. Now, I know a lot of places now are slowly allowing things to open up. And where I live, it's still pretty closed in right now, as I mentioned, as I'm recording this. But we're all going through where it's like we can't just, do our normal routines. Like things are different. Some of us are obviously our experiences are different, but the situation like that was happening is all, we're all experiencing it across the world. And it really all just starts with us, like as a person, to go inward and figure out what best way to continue moving forward in our life. But yeah, because some of us might be, isolated alone. Some of you might be isolated with like large families where it's like it might be a blessing that you have somebody to help you with your children, like watching your children. But that at the same time, it's like you have zero time to yourself. Like all our experiences are different. Yet it can still come down to just taking 5, 10, 15 minutes to yourself here and there, little pockets, to really just ground yourself, listen from within, so you can build those relationships even stronger through all this. The cool thing is, with all these growing pains that have been happening with my husband and I, as much as like there's been times where I'm like, oh my goodness, are we going to even survive this? Like, this is insane. The pressure, the craziness, the stress. Like, my husband and I can't even have a conversation together when the kids are around. Like, because my kids are 6 and 4, and it's just like they want me constantly, and I love them to pieces. It's just that when my husband and I are trying to have a conversation, they constantly interrupt, even after spending lots of time with them. Anyways, so it can be a challenge. Yet every time I'm like, oh my goodness, like, is this, like, can we survive this? We have a heart-to-heart conversation, and it always, always brings us closer. Always. It's important, like going within, you also need to have conversations with the ones you love around you. If you hold things inside, like grudges and things, like I remember when I was in college, I had a roommate and he drove me up a wall. But did I ever mention what bothered me to him? No, I constantly complained to my friends. Well, my friends couldn't do anything about it. They weren't tied to the messes in the bathroom or the kitchen or any of this other stuff. People can't read our minds. That's just the thing. Maybe they can. But anyways, we can't expect them to read our minds, right? So if something's bothering you about somebody else, again, take that minute to just center yourself and then have a conversation. It's so important. And throughout all this, the crazy stressfulness of, having our kids home 24/7, selling our house, like staging, getting it ready for the market, selling it, and then, moving on to the next phase of like finding our new home. Like, there's a lot going on, right? And yes, we've done it to ourselves. So again, not complaining, just sharing. And it's so important to have those conversations. They'll go like, look, this is how I feel. Like my husband, after we sold our house, he's like, how do you feel? And I was like, I'm like super excited, but at the same time, like a little nervous of like where our next phase is. And he's like, me too. Like, we need to have these conversations, and to be open and honest about how we're feeling. And then it's allowing the other person involved to be open and honest too. Because if he shared like he was feeling something completely different, I would honor that. We have to honor what the other person is feeling, even if we don't believe or see or understand what they're feeling. We can still honor and respect where they're at. So there's a lot involved in any relationship. Respect, honesty, patience. That's a big one that I've been working on myself recently. And it all comes back again, though, to listening from within. So if you've been struggling in your relationship because you're, confined to this, a house or apartment or a small space, and that's the only person you've been getting to hang out with, or maybe you're now entering the world again, and that can be a scary thing too. Take some time. I love meditating. It's one of the biggest things that has helped ground me, open up space to really discover who I am, what I want, or need. And then it really gets me into a place that I can help my children. I can support them. I can support my husband. And we can have really powerful conversations. Now, they're not always, giggling happy, but they can be some serious. There can be some tears. There can be some anger. But we get it out on the table, like, there. Then we leave it there, right? We pick up what we need, but leave everything else there on the table. And it has been one of the best things that has happened through here is getting really clear. And even though I've known my husband for 11 years, 11 and a half actually, I'm still learning things about him. And I'm sure he's still learning things about me. And when I said I lost myself for a minute, it actually was one of the things that caused conflict in our relationship, because I'm always the one that knows exactly what I want to go after. I know, like, I'm really in tuned to what I want a lot of the time. But I got lost there because I wasn't sleeping. There was some crazy unsleeping nights and all this, and I wasn't meditating and doing yoga and all the other things that really ground me. And then it caused conflict. So again, working inward can really help the relationships around you. You cannot fix outward. Let's not, again, I'm using the word fixed. We can't change things around outside of us until we change ourselves. So it starts with you. If you want something to change in your life, look within. And this is not about judging or being ashamed of who you are. This is just lovingly looking within to seeing what you want, what you truly want, and then working towards that, like for yourself and then outward. I hope this has helped. I wanted to really share some of the struggles that my husband and I have been going through, because it has been happening. And, we don't just live happily ever after a wedding. A wedding is a wonderful event. It was amazing. However, that's just the very, very beginning of the marriage. Like that's just, lights and, fun and fluff and things. But what comes after is what really, really is important. How you handle situations, how you have a conversation with one another, how you respect one another, be honest with one another, and things like that, and how you're going to share and move and grow throughout your life together. And if you aren't married yet, that is totally cool. And it's just not, you can fantasize about a wedding, but just know that that's the first step. And then all these other things I share about here, again, it can be related to any relationship that you might be struggling with right now or that you want to strengthen. I hope you have a beautiful, beautiful day. Bye for now.